It's January 27th, 2024, and I've decided that it's about due time to visit the Huron Shops. Not only is this video about me visiting Huron, but also to give some extra information about engines I talked about in the RCP&E Locomotives 2023 video I made a few weeks ago. Now I'll be honest, I stopped making videos for every single visit to Huron. I've been there so many times before, so I've essentially streamlined the visitation process. Also, there hasn't really been anything interesting or out of the ordinary in the last few visits. This time, there isn't much sitting around in the turntable. Here is BPRR 2192. The Buffalo and Pittsburgh got these from FURX. Since only one of the three that has arrived is sitting out, I think it's safe to say that the other two are being repainted. While RCP&E isn't really using these in their own service, it's nice to see something that isn't corporate orange, and also something that isn't an SD40-2. I finally know why Portland Western 3051 is here. Apparently it's getting an overhaul. The fact that this thing came all the way to South Dakota for something like this just goes to show how important the Huron Shops are to the Genesee and Wyoming system. Now, 3455 and 3431 are two that have been out of service for quite a while now. As it turns out, these two were supposed to become road slugs, but the plan eventually fell through. This would explain why I saw them being referred to as such at one point a few months ago. Oh, and by the way, all this information came from this guy. BNSF 988. This was the one that I speculated might be repainted, although even I knew that this was very unlikely. As it turns out, it was involved in a derailment last winter, and BNSF demanded that the Huron Shops fix it. By this time, it's probably back on the BNSF system. Speaking of GEs, I've always dreamed that the Dash 8s and Dash 9s will just show up one day, but I know that this is dependent on other things happening first. More specifically, it seems that they aren't going to get them until the shop construction is done. Based on what I've read elsewhere, this could be another year or two or even 3 from now. But every day we're getting closer. Finally, the two green locomotives. While 4002 is on the EPA's hit list, that isn't why it's getting scrapped. During the trip up to South Dakota, water was left in the pipes, which froze and broke. Yeah, leave it to the Arizonians to know how winter works. I'm sure it wasn't their fault, but to me this seems like the kind of problem that could have been prevented. And there doesn't seem to be any consensus as to why 3996 is out of commission. Back to the present, and it seems most of the locomotives are sitting in lines further down the yard. 3446 is covered in what looks like oil, so that's a thing. Anyway, West Side Switch Huron has a train ready to depart. It started moving just after I crossed the road, and I had to frantically chase it down a parallel gravel road. The road hit a dead end, so I had to wait for it to pass in order to get back onto the highway. By the time I got to Wolsey in order to get it at the diamond, it was already passing, and so I had to drive ahead of the diamond and catch it. As I was entering town, I noticed some headlights down the BNSF line, but by the time the RCP&E train passed, I was once again too slow and had to wait for this to clear the road so I could get back on the highway and chase it. This seems to be a unit grain train, and it has a GEVO on the front and both a GEVO and a Dash 9 on the back. I've seen a few stationary BNSF trains around Wolsey a few times, but this is the first time that I happen to be here when there's an actual train passing. Well, that's it for this one, so I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.